and welcome to the Yartzeit uh, event in honor of our father. So before I start, let me give a short introduction to the schedule. So we have, thank God, we have a guest speaker, and then we'll have a speaker for the family. Then we'll have some siyums that we're doing, some exciting announcements, and we're going to follow up with an ending video as well. So the first things first, I'd like to thank really everyone here, the whole shul. We are finishing a trying period and entering a period of light. And one of the biggest comforts we've had of the family is the shul and the community working tirelessly, especially the board, to keep the shul going and to move the shul forward and to keep the flame that my father and mother helped ignite, to keep that going through this trying year. And I would like to thank really everyone, but I would be remiss I didn't mention the rabbinic figures who have stood by us and supported us and guide us throughout this time. I'd like to thank Chief Rabbi Warren Goldstein for really being there for us with his friendship, with his guidance, with his warmth, with his support, which has meant so much to us. I'd like to thank Rabbi Arbach for being a big support for our family and helping give us guidance during this period. And as I said, everyone, moving the shul to this new period is very exciting for us, and we're so glad that we're at this point. I'd like to ask the oldest Kraines, Rabbi Zachariah Kraines, to start off the evening as to represent the family and say a few words.
Thank you, Mayor. And the oldest Kraines is technically our mother, but we're not supposed to mention that in polite company, so I'll let it slide. So first of all, like Mayor said, thank you all for joining us here tonight. And really, this year has been, as Mayor said, a very trying year. And looking back at this, at this entire year, we really, we couldn't have done it without the support of so many people who are joining us here tonight, looking through all the people here who are joining us on this Zoom call, and more people are joining us as we go along. But really, your friendship and your support in so many different ways has really helped make this year so much more manageable for us. So we're very grateful for that. I also want to acknowledge Rabbi Rabbi Teller, just like Mayor said, who has stepped in recently to take over the reins of Orsa Stanton. And we're really thrilled that Orsa has the both of you and your family as their new leaders. One thing, kind of thinking through it, one thing that we've come to realize is, yes, my father, my mother, all of us, yes, we had an impact or a role in some way in shaping and forming Orsa Stanton and the community. But if you look back at it, I think it'd be very true to say that Orsa Stanton and the people, the members of Orsa Stanton, have had such a large role in shaping and impacting us, both personally and as a family. And I think the lesson, something that we learned just from our experience and our interaction is, um, I think what we saw from our fathers at Sal and from my mother, Tabala Chaim Tovim, that it's all about the more you give selflessly of yourself, um, I think we received tenfold more than we put in just from everyone, from the members of the community. So we're eternally grateful for that. I think my father would want there to be a Groucho Marx quote in a speech said about him. So to quote Groucho Marx, before I begin, I have something important to say. I think it's really important to give recognition, and the person who deserves the most recognition tonight is our mother. And I'm sure you may don't want me saying this, but I really do feel this way, and I think my siblings would join me in saying that, Ima, you've been the glue that has really tied us all together, not just the past year, but for many decades already. And in the past year, pushing, um, very gently pushing to have all these regular Zoom calls, and keep the communication up, and just keeping us so tightly connected as a family unit. And I really appreciate that. I think the most poignant memory for me, or moment for me from this past year, was probably Erev Yom Kippur, when my father usually would call us to give us our traditional pre-Yom Kippur brachas to his children, to all of us, and boom, it hit that all of a sudden we're not going to be getting that phone call this year. And my mother called very matter-of-factly and said, "Okay, Zachariah, I'm calling to give you your bracha." And she proceeded to give the bracha that she had never given me, but she had heard for 40 years my father give each and every one of us, and probably pushed him every Yom Kippur saying, "Did you call Meir? Did you call Yeshaya? Did you call Shmuley?" And another area where I really felt this cohesion of the family is around my father's his tombstone, his matzeva. And I'm sure many people here have had the opportunity to see, the wording that we came up with. And you can imagine it's a very emotional, very sensitive moment. Just trying to figure out what to write on a tombstone. How do you symbolize? How do you just encapsulate so much into just a few words? And we had multiple Zoom meetings about that as well. And yet the 12 of us and my mother were able to come together. They say a camel is a horse designed by a committee. So yes, we came through as a committee, and I think we were able to put together something we're very proud of. It would have been a lot easier had my father, Zatzal, just written the tombstone for us himself. But in the absence of that, we did our best. I just want to set the tone for tonight. Tonight's not about mourning or sadness. We've had a whole year for that. We've had the Shiva period. We had the 30 days for Shloshim. We had the entire first year of Kaddish. And we've had a time, an opportunity to reflect on our loss. And we will continue to have, to be feeling that for every day for the rest of our lives. This evening, though, on the occasion of his Yartzeit, what we're really here to do is to find inspiration in his life and to celebrate his legacy. It's not about mourning, but rather of reflection. And that's really what we're trying to accomplish here tonight. And thank you for joining us in celebrating his life and continued inspiration. Looking back at Hanukkah, most people, if you ask them what their memory is of Hanukkah, what's their recollection? They would say it's the presents, or it's the food, or all of the above. For us, and I haven't ran this by my siblings, but I know without a shadow of a doubt, if you were to ask any one of us, what is our recollection of Hanukkah? What did Hanukkah mean to us growing up in my parents' house? It was singing and dancing with my father. He would light the Hanukkah candles every night. We would all light. We would each have our own menorah. And we would then just dance and sing. And, Chaya today found a recording of a video from 2003 of my father dancing with Sarah Malka and Simcha, and who was in it, Yehuda, Shimshon, Chaya. But that same dancing enthusiasm he had in 2003, he also had in 1983 when I was 4. Every year, yes, we had the food. My mother makes amazing latkes. Yes, we had the presents, but that's not really what comes to mind when we think about Hanukkah. It's really about the joy and about the dancing, and my father deeply connected to Hanukkah. In a very deep, deep level. My father would often say on Yom Tovs that he would quote Rav Hirsch. He was a really big fan of Shimshon Raphael Hirsch. And he would quote Rav Hirsch that the word moed, Yom Tov is called moed in the Torah. And the word moed symbolizes it doesn't really mean Yom Tov. It doesn't really mean holiday. The word moed means meeting, like the Ohel Moed, the Mishkan in the desert. Moed, Rav Hirsch explained, and my father would very often say this in Shul. The word Moed is meeting, and the Moadim, the various holidays interspersed throughout the year, would be when we would come once again and reconnect. We would meet with Hashem on a deeper level. And he would say that time is not linear. It's not that we keep going across time. He would say line was circular. We would come back, we would revisit. Every Pesach, we would come back to the next Pesach, the next Moed, the next meeting point. Every Sukkot, we would come back around to the next Sukkot. And we reconnect with that same level of meaning a year later. And more than that, we reflect upon where we have been, how much we have grown in the past year. To quote Terry Pratchett, one of my favorite authors growing up, coming back to where you started is not the same as never leaving. And that's really, when we approach every holiday, that's really what we're taking out with, reconnecting. There's so much more to say, and I really want to make sure that we have time for all of us to speak. So I just want to end with one thought. Rabbi Hirsch says, also Rabbi Hirsch on Hanukkah, that the lesson of Hanukkah, the Hanukkah story that we all know, really, if you think about it, is a lesson of the Beis HaMikdash, the temple in Yerushalayim, was completely desecrated. Our institutions were no longer there to serve us. Where is it? What is the holiday? What do we mark on Hanukkah? What's the story? One family, Matisyahu, the head of the Maccabees, came and he stepped forward and he said, Mila Shamilai. There was darkness all over. And yet one person, one little flame, was able to then reignite for everyone else. And Rav Hirsch says, and that's why the mitzvah is ner ish uveso. The mitzvah is a family unit. There aren't that many other mitzvahs out there that the mitzvah is on the unit as a family. And that's Hanukkah. Hanukkah is about that. Once again, so much more to say, so much more stories to share with you about my father. But I just want to say that what I want to take out from tonight is that Moed, just like Pesach, and who can ever forget a Pesach Seder with my father, or Purim, Megillah reading with my father. Just like that, there's always some sort of connection, something that you dig into to find inspiration. I like to propose that for any of us or all of us who have been in some way, in some shape or form, inspired or affected by my father and his spirit. Every night of Hanukkah, on the fourth night, as you light the fourth candle, maybe stop a moment and think, and maybe sing, maybe dance, maybe spend some time with your loved ones, sharing this joy and sharing the spirit of Hanukkah. And also, like a Moed, maybe this is the night to reflect once a year on the Yartzeit and the time of his passing. Not just we're a year later, but rather where are we now, relative to where we were a year ago. That's that circular. Hopefully we started here and went around, but not just, we didn't come back exactly to where we were. Went around and we find ourselves a little higher, grown a bit more as a people, or in our spirituality, or in whatever it is that you found that the spirit of my father has affected you. So I want to wish you a happy Hanukkah, and may the neshama of our dear father, Zev Shlomo ben Zachariah Leib Zatzal, may his neshama have an aliyah. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zachariah. At this point, I'd like to thank, I see we're 146 participants from all over the world, friends, family. Thank you so much, each and every one of you, for joining, and and especially at this time, we don't really have a geographic place to meet, but just all of you coming and just at the same time and just connecting the same place really is a wonderful marking of this milestone. So thank you all of you for your participation. Yeah, so I also like to thank, just the slideshow at the beginning was from my nephew Rabbi Kraines. Thank you for that. So at this point, I'd like to introduce our guest speaker, Rabbi Gabi Bukatz, who, one of the amazing qualities that my father had, as Zachariah mentioned, was a great, deep, authentic love of Hashem, a love of Torah, love of mitzvos, that we benefited. We in his community, as his family, we benefited from observing and imbibing. And as it says, a little bit of light, sasmina or a little bit of light pushes away so much darkness. It's really illuminated our lives. Having our father with such a love of life, a love of people, and sharing that love and warmth and happiness to all of us. Another person who has also similar love of Torah, who has taught many shiurim while he was the assistant rabbi living with us in Gala Manor, and a close friend of the family, Rabbi Bukatz. It's an honor to ask you to share some words with us about Hanukkah.
Thank you. I hope everybody can hear me and see me clearly. We don't have to see me, you just have to hear me. It really is an enormous privilege to be here. It really is a very humbling and a very special moment to speak and to be asked. Thank you for Yehuda to reaching out to me. I was actually quite shocked. I must be honest that this time last year, we were in Cape Town on holiday, and when the news came through and we were watching the Levaya online, I kept saying to my family, all I want to do is just get on a plane and sit with the family. That's all I wanted. And because in many ways, I really felt like I grew up in the Kraines household. I feel like my own childhood memories, I certainly grew up spiritually in their home, and have so many fun stories and sad stories and remarkable stories and inspiration. And I'll maybe share one or two. These are not words of hesped, although I desperately wanted to say them at the time, and within my family and my community, I certainly did say, I certainly did speak. And I think Zachariah said a very beautiful thing, that if you, as I personally go through the year and the Chagim and the Moadim, and even a regular Shabbos, there's certain things that I just think, oh, I remember what the Kraineses would do. And I remember just benching, singing, benching, and I remember the banter around the Shabbos table and the teasing and the playfulness and the Torah learning and the questions Rabbi Kraines would ask my children and ask me, and always asking the right question for the right level of the right child. And my memory is just filled with so many heartfelt and warm memories of a man who had a remarkable impact on me and personally, who touched me on a very, very deep level, who taught me so much Torah. We used to learn together. We had a chavrusa, and it was so special. He kindled my love for learning the Chazon Ish, and we learned Chazon Ish together, even the Emunah and Bitachon, but also the Divrei Halacha of the Chazon Ish, and also by his dugma, by his personal example. And there are two stories that I'd just like to share, and then I want to just give some words of Torah that for me try to get across, a little thought about Rabbi Kraines. That's how maybe two stories that for me capture the diversity and the kaleidoscope of the depth of the personality and the depth of soul of Rabbi Kraines. That's how was, I was looking at his poetry. I mean, I've got every time he printed something new, he always gave it to me, and I've got a pile of notes and handwritten stuff and by him, and every time he thought of a new Dvar Torah, he would type it out and he'd send me a copy and ask me what I think. And I was reading his poetry, and I was thinking to myself, what a poetic soul. I mean, how many Rabbonim today do we know that write poetry? In the Rishonim, in the times of the Rishonim, Rav Yehuda Levi and the other Golim of Sfarad, poetry was part of Torah, it was part of Ruchnias, it was part of life. And I don't know how many people, Rav Kook wrote poetry, but I mean, how many in modern times people wrote poetry? And I was looking through his poetry and I was trying to get across some stories to my kids, and then stories just came out. And I'd like to tell you two stories that give you kind of expansive diversity of the complexity of the depth of the spirit of this remarkable individual that had a profound impact on my personality and on my spirit. One was a silly story, but it was a funny story because it really captured the light-hearted Simchas HaChaim and the diversity of Rabbi Kraines. And I remembered one Purim. And it's interesting, Zachariah spoke about the Yontavim, and that's what I do when I think about the Yontav. Every Yontav comes along, I think, oh, I remember what Rabbi Kraines would do. And I remember this story and that event. I'll tell you one funny story. We had Kraines should remember this. We had a Purim event at the shul, and we got we call it when they get a karaoke. We got a karaoke, and we made sure that Rabbi Kraines' glass would always be full, and he kept drinking and drinking and singing louder and dancing more, and the Torah became sweeter, and eventually we switched on the karaoke, and and everybody had a chance to sing on the karaoke, and then he got the microphone and he called me up, and the two of us started singing the Beatles. And I remember the whole community was flabbergasted that Rabbi Kraines knows all the words for all the Beatles songs. And I remember thinking, that's the diversity and the depth of it was just, for me, it was like, that's my Rebbe, you know, like we could learn everything. We could learn the Chazon Ish together, but when Simchasa comes in, we can sing about the Beatles. But so that was just a light-hearted, fun story. It just gives you about the love of life, Rabbi Kraines said. But I'll tell you another story that, for me, really described the Mesiras Nefesh that he had for his community, for his tzibur, and for me, that was, as a rabbi now of my own community, that story, when I saw this, had a profound impact on my understanding of what it means to be a rabbi. I remember one Rosh Hashanah, we davened, we had two minyanim, one upstairs and downstairs, and he came back for mincha later on, and I remember that as we were starting mincha, Rabbi Kraines came running into shul with a shofar in hand, and his legs were shaking. And I kid you not, his legs were shaking. I said, what happened? He said he's been running at a quick lunch, and then all he did for the entire afternoon was go around from house to house to house for those people who couldn't make it to shul, to blow shofar for them. He has been on his feet and running from home to home, blowing 30 blasts for every person, and he made it just in time for mincha in the late afternoon, and his legs were shaking. And I remember thinking, the Mesiras Nefesh. I mean, I just was so looking forward to my shlof. And this is what he did on his Yom Tov. That's what he did on his Rosh Hashanah, was care about his tzibur, made sure that everybody's mitzvahs were taken care of. And it had, I mean, I remember my heart broke when I saw his legs shaking, but they were literally shaking, and it had such a remarkable impact. So within that, and very much related to what Zachariah spoke about earlier, I'd like to share, it's an amazing thing to think that his Yartzeit occurs on fourth night Hanukkah, because Hanukkah, for me, in many ways captures so much of the diversity and the complexity of Rabbi Kraines Zatzal. Because we know that the Hanukkah story is not really just a simple story of, non-Jews trying to oppress the Jews, killing the Jews, and then the Jews rebelling and winning. And, as the old story goes, they try to kill us, we won, let's eat. We know that the Hanukkah
Mayor.
Let's wait a couple more seconds and see if you can get a connection.
Okay, otherwise we can go to the Siyum and then we'll come back for it.
Oh, okay. So let's move on to the next thing, to the Siyum, and then
Right.
we'll move back to complete Rabbi Buketz's words. So the next thing up is a Siyum. We actually are amongst the family mostly. We made a plan to sort of have done a Siyum on Mishnayos, all Mishnah, and also a Siyum on Seder Moed in the Gemara. Also, just want to acknowledge Daniel Friedman for the idea of making that Siyum on Seder Moed in Gemara. But before I do that, I also would like to thank, really, we've heard, and I'm sure there's stuff that I'm sure there's a lot that I don't know even, but all the people who have been doing things, merits, dedicating, learning, Daf Yomi, Yumim in terms of Torah, and everyone who participated in the Rabbi Kraines Chesed Challenge, which is just a tremendous thing, and just a personal thank you to each and every one of you, that it's meant so much to us, everything that you've done. and in our father's merit this past year. And especially it's apropos on the Yartzeit to make a siyum, because I saw this idea from, I think, name of Nishmas Yisrael, that everything follows the conclusion. Conclude something in a Yort as if all that was learned on a Yort site. So I'd like to ask my brothers to make these siyumin.
I'm not gonna be on Zoom anyway. Is that okay?
Okay, I'm doing a last mission of Uksin right now. Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Asi LaKadosh Baruch Hu lahanchil lechol tzadik v'tzadik shloish me'os v'asor elamis shene'amar lahanchil oihavai yesh v'yitzriseim amali. Yeshua ben Levi said, Hashem in the future is going to give each tzaddik 310 worlds of reward. As the pasuk says, to grant as an inheritance to those that, to my beloved, yesh, that which there is, yesh is the gematria of 310, and their treasure houses I will fill. So in the future, Hashem will give the righteous each 310 worlds of reward. Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Chalafta, lo yimatza kadosh baruch hu kli machzik bracha liyisrael ela hashalom. Hashem did not find a vessel which is fitting to hold a receptacle for peace, a receptacle of blessing. The only thing that could hold blessing inside it is shalom, peace. Shene'amar, Adonai oizlah mo'yitain, Adonai yivarech, esamay v'shalom. Hashem will grant his nation strength and he will bless him with peace. In other words, as much blessing as a person has, if there's no peace of mind and there's no peace in his family and amongst him and his society, then what is the blessing worth? The only receptacle can hold all blessings inside them is peace. And this is very apt and very appropriate for our dear father, his name was actually Ze'ev Shlomo. Shlomo is him to whom peace belongs. His peace was very much a priority for him. It was something which he was willing to compromise on many other things, but not to compromise on peace between him and everyone around him. And that's why he was a receptacle for much blessing within his life, as we can testify. And now he's after this year, he has entered to his just reward of 310 worlds. So may it be. May Hashem have an aliyah. Are you not going to do the Gemara now? What? Yeah, I want to see it. Want to see it? Want to see it?
Okay. Gemara and Pesachim. Can you hear me? Gemara and Pesachim and Rabbi Simlai Ikla Lepidyon Ben. Rabbi Simlai, he went to a Pidyon Ben. Bo Minay, they asked him. Shita, it's one thing is clear. Al Pidyon Ben, the bracha of Al Pidyon Ben is Asher Kedishanu b'mitzvah Sabbath Ivanu Al Pidyon Ben. Who says it? Avia Ben Mevarech. Baruch Shechiyanu v'Kiyimanu v'Giyanu Azman Hazeh Kohen Mevarech. The Kohen maker. There's the Gemara's question. Who makes the bracha of Shechiyanu? Is the Kohen make the bracha or Avia Ben Mevarech? Does the Kohen make a bracha? Kohen Mevarech the Kamatiyana the Yade. It's because he's receiving the money for the Binyan Ben. And Avia Ben Mevarech the Ka'avid Mitzvah, or the father of the son makes a bracha because he's getting the Ana of the Mitzvah. Who's the one who makes the bracha of Shechiyanu? Loi hava biyade. He didn't know the answer. Asa shal ben midrasha. So he went and he asked a question in the base of midrash. Amrulei avia ben mevarech shtaim. I said to him, the father of the son, he makes two brachas. He makes a bracha of Apina ben, and he makes a bracha of Shechiyanu because he is the one doing the mitzvah. The mitzvah is a bigger cause of bracha than the 200, than the chamesh shloim. Sorry, that the kohen gets. The hilchasa avi haben mevarech shtaim. The halacha is the father of the son, he makes two brachas. Handlach ad pesachim b'slichla mesechus pesachim. So which one?
Mishnah. Let's say it together.
Okay, fine.
We're doing this on behalf of everyone who participated, on behalf of the whole family who participated in these two very big sealing.
So I think you should first say the Nusach and Abbas.
What are the siyums on again?
What? Saying one siyum is on Seder Moed and Gemara, and one siyum is on Shas Mishnah, which both were divided among different people. But it's just different. Okay, so
Adon lach shisha sidrei mishnah v'adach alan. Adon lach shisha sidrei mishnah v'adach alan. Lo nisnashe minach shisha sidrei mishnah v'lo nisnashe minon. Lo yibal madin v'lo yibal madin say. Adon alach shisha sidrei mishnah v'adach alan. Adon alach shisha sidrei mishnah v'adach alan. Lo nisnashe minach shisha sidrei mishnah v'lo nisnashe minon. Lo yibal madin v'lo yibal madin say. Adon alan. Adon alach shisha sidrei mishnah v'adach alan. Adon alach shisha sidrei mishnah v'adach alan. Lo nisnashe minach shisha sidrei mishnah v'lo nisnashe minon. Lo yibal madin v'lo yibal madin say.
Adon alach Mesachas Sachim the Seder Moed v'Hadach Alan. Daitan alach Mesachas Sachim the Seder Moed v'Daitan alach. The Nisnashe minach Mesachas Sachim the Seder Moed the Nisnashe minon v'Amadem v'Amadem say. Adon alach Mesachas Sachim the Seder Moed v'Hadon alach. Daitan alach Mesachas Sachim the Seder Moed v'Daitach Alan. The Nisnashe minach Mesachas Sachim the Nisnashe minon v'Amadem v'Amadem say. Adon alach Mesachas Sachim v'Hadach Alan. Daitan alach Mesachas Sachim the Seder Moed v'Daitan alach. The Nisnashe minach Mesachas Sachim the Seder Moed v'Nisnashe minon v'Amadem v'Amadem say. Yartzeit lefanach Adonai Eloheinu v'lebeseinu hey seirasacha u'manoseinu ba'olam hazeh u'sahei u'manu la'olam haba. Chanina bar Papa, Rami bar Papa, Nachman bar Papa, Achai bar Papa, Abba Meir bar Papa, Rafram bar Papa, Rachish bar Papa, Sucha bar Papa, Ada bar Papa, Dor bar Papa. Ha'arevna Eloheinu zirei Yisrael b'finu v'fifiyos amcha beis Yisrael v'niyeh kulanu anachnu b'tetzeinu v'tetzei amcha beis Yisrael kulanu yod eish lecha v'lem beis Yosefa me'oy gaitzach ha'kameini v'tzvisach l'olam hili hili b'samei b'chukecha l'olam ma'ale yevoish the olam ashkach b'kodach givam chisani v'lorach atah Adonai l'amedeni chukecha amen 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 salava et Madim anachnu lefanach Adonai Eloheinu v'lebeseinu shesamta chalkeinu v'yoshvei beis midrash lo samta chalkeinu v'yoshvei toronos Anu mashtimim v'hem mashtimim, anu mashtimim d'divrei Torah v'hem mashtimim d'varim b'teilim. Anu amelim v'hem amelim, anu amelim v'chavim sachar v'hem amelim v'hem v'chavim sachar. Anu rotzim v'hem rotzim, anu rotzim v'chayel mava v'hem rotzim v'ver shachas shneimar atah lehim taridem v'ver shachas anshidamim v'mirma le'yetzu yameim v'aniach dakbach. Yehi rotzim lefanach Adonai Elohai kishem she'azatan she'yisayim b'sachas Sachim Shazatanu Messiah Misachim Messiah Moed the Shitz of the Midrash can't have Zaynu Asbel Misachim Asfarim Achim the Simon Lilmod the Lamed Nishma Velastus Chaim is called Dive Samater Secha Be'ava this Fuskal Atanoim Amirayim the Talmidei Chamchamim Yamed Li Lanu Zaleinu Somu Shalai the Mikinu Mipi Zareinu Vizera Zareinu Adoilan Oilam
Bisiskai Banu
Bisalech Vatan Isach Bishach Tishmar Alecha Vakitzai Sichecha ki vir v'yomecha v'yisifu lecha shlois chayim v'yirech yomim b'yamina v'sismeina asher v'chavay Adonai oizna me'itein Adonai yvarech tzamad shalom. Say Kaddish. Kaddish to Rabbanu. You Kaddish Kaddish. I have a method. Okay.
Why do you all say?
All sing it. All sing it. Wait up. What do you say?
Should you sing Kaddish?
One, go. Yiskadal, Yiskadash, Shenei Navo, Yamadu Asida, Sakin, Kaya Almo, Ulimivne Kartu Yerushalayim, Ulishkalel, Pekele, Begavei, Numerika Pukonon, Nukro, Me'aro, Uno Savo, Pukonon, Ishmael, La Esrei, Biamni, Kuchabrichu, Vikorei, Yechayvoi, Numene Koi, Chayvo, Beis Yisrael, Bagalo, Bizman, Korivim, Ru, Amen. Amen. Yisparach, Vishtabach, Vispar, Vishtamal, Visnasei, Visador, Visalev, Vishalol, Shmei, Vikurshav, Rivihu, Leila, Mikol, Virasa, Vishirasa, Tushvasa, Nevasa, Damiron, Yalama, Vimru, Amen. Amen. Al Yisrael, Yalabon, Val, Tamidei, Val, Tamidei, Tamidei, Welkom das Kinderreisor, die Masor Kadisha, den die Asar Basar. Je hele Heinu Hoy, Shomor Abochim, Christo Rachamim. V'chayin arichenu zehir v'chayu kurban v'imru amen. Eishma Rabbo Mishmaya, Hayim Eloheinu Israel, Israel Amen. Oyaseh Shalom Yimramav, Oyaseh Shalom Eloheinu, Avon Israel, V'imru amen.
Yeah, sure, Kayak. So I'd like to, there was a pair of failure in Glen Hazel, which sort of stopped Rabbi Buket's in the middle, but he's joining via audio. So I'd like to ask him if he can continue. Thank you.
Apologies about that. Thank you. Thank you, Rabbi Meir. It was a temporary, like a 5-minute power failure, and then everything came back to, got back to normal. It just takes time for the router to reboot. But so shkoyach, a big mazel tov to everybody for the stream. I managed to catch the tail end of it. So I was thinking, it's a remarkable thing that Rabbi Kraines Zatzal passed away at Afghan Chanukah, because that very much says so much about everything that he believed in and represented for me personally and for the community. And that is that, as I was saying earlier, that really the story of Chanukah is a complex story of not just conflict between some political forces. It was really an internal conflict within the Jewish people, how to relate to the Greek culture and the Greek values, and that culture. And that's one amazing, truly remarkable insight, and that's what I want to share with you tonight. Was Cook in his Ein Hayah, which is his comments on Shas, says a remarkable thing. He says, no, we don't commemorate other miracles of battle as well either. Like the story of Yericho and what happened with Yoshua holding up the sun. I mean, we've had other miracles in battle occurred previously, but why is it that we have to commemorate Hanukkah as integrated so deeply in the eternal Chag of the Jewish people? And so Rav Kook says, because the conflict and the struggle of how to relate to the Chochmas HaUmos HaOlam is not a simple one-off thing. It's a conflict that has to be dealt with generation after generation, that one has to hold steadfast to the values of the Beis HaMikdash, to the Kedusha of Eretz Yisrael, to our Torah and to our Masorah and to our Avos. On the other hand, we also have to engage with the world out there and bring people into the Jews that are out there, that are involved in, and bring Orla Goyim and showing the world and Klal Israel the relevance of Torah to their modern 21st century lifestyle and the problems that they're dealing with. And the relevance of Torah is something that Rabbi Kraines always taught me, that Torah is always relevant. As Jews, we never shy of content. We never lack content. What we struggle with is the packaging. What we struggle with is how to show its relevance and its meaning and its reaching out to the wider Jewish community and to the world as a whole. Because really it's the light of Torah, and it's the light of God, and it's Hashem's objective moral standards that of course is eternally valuable and of course is eternally relevant for the world, because that's the purpose of everything, is to bring the light of Torah into the world. So Rav Kook quotes a well-known Gemara in Shabbos. The Gemara says, the Gemara says that the mitzvah is to put the Chanukia outdoors, but when at times of danger, bring the Chanukia onto your table, into your home, and that's enough. And Rav Kook says why? He says because the light of the Chanukia is the light of Torah. It's the light of Kedusha. It's the light of Hashem's objective moral truth. And of course that's always relevant to the Goyim, because our challenge is to show the world is the beauty and the depth and the opportunity that they all have to bring their life into the guidelines, under the guidelines of Torah. And the beauty of Torah showed to the world. He says, and that's why the Chanukia has to be placed outdoors, Because we have to show the world, we have to be an Or LaGoyim. We have to bring the light of Hashem into the world. But the book says there are times that the world out there is so threatened, is so offended by our challenge to live a spiritual life, to live a moral life, an uncompromising moral life, and to live a life filled with Kedusha. Sometimes they're so offended by it and so threatened by it that they become aggressive, and it becomes a danger to speak openly about these things. So then what does a Jew do? Says Rav Kook, that's what the Gemara says. At that moment, you bring the Chanukiah inside, you put it on your table, and you bring light into your home. Because as long as there's Kedusha in one's home, as long as there's Kedusha in the family, then maybe this generation is not ready. Maybe this year, the world is not ready to hear the beauty of Torah and to see the light of Kedusha and the light of Torah into the world. But maybe now they're not ready, but maybe next year they'll be ready. Maybe in 10 years' time they'll be ready. Maybe the next generation will be ready. But my job is to bring the Torah first and foremost into my home. And I'm thinking that is exactly, for me, personified Rabbi Kraines so deeply. Because first and foremost, his priority was his family. Because if you look at these beautiful children, these beautiful boys and girls with their beautiful spouses and their beautiful grandchildren, and this wonderful family that's so diverse and yet so holy and so committed to the diverse personality, that colorful, that simchas hachaim that he had, that he imbued each and every child with their little flame and lit up in their little way what was necessary for them. I even remember the one year, it was Yehuda's birthday. And Yehuda, you were little at the time. I mean, I can't even remember how small you were. And your dad got you a cricket bat for your birthday. Yehuda, do you remember this? Your dad got you a cricket bat for your birthday. And I remember thinking, like, that's amazing. You know, he didn't get you a Mishnah Brura. He didn't get you an Alei Shur. He got you a cricket bat because he knew that that's what you loved. And that's what, he had no doubt that you loved learning. And he had no doubt that you loved connecting to the community. And he had no doubt he wanted to strengthen your love for sport as well. I remember so many times going into the lounge and seeing Terry Pratchett lying on the, Terry Pratchett books, sitting on the dining room table. And it was remarkable. And that was the diversity and the beauty of the Jewish home. First and foremost, the Kraineses together partnered with Nechama to bring the light of Torah first and foremost into the home. It's a home that's really imbued with the values of Masorah, values of Torah, and then focus afterwards to bring it out into the world. Each one in their own special way, their own magnificent way, and their unique personality. They did it in their own way. This one is sporty, this one loves computers, this one loves to read, and everybody had their own flavor. This one is social, this one's not too social. And he loved all of them. He loves all of them, and he loves all of you for your diversity, for your colorfulness. And he nurtured it, and he brought it home. But he focused on the community as well as focusing on the family. So for me, really, Hanukkah is a time to remember Rabbi Kraines, Zachariah said so beautifully, to remember the stories. I remember the singing, I remember the dancing, I remember the windows filled with those Chanukiahs outdoors. And I remember, and it's just for me, his memory is always going to be a source of enormous inspiration. And I hope to pass it on to my children and to continue his legacy of Torah, of love of life, love of family, and continue bringing that life of Torah into the world.
I know, you could show me a message. No, we. I know, I don't know what's happening. No.
Thank you, Rabbi Meir. Thank you, Kivi.
Thank you so much. God, that was really, really meaningful, and appreciate it so much. The next thing we have is a launch of one of the last projects that my father started, and we've been keeping it through, keeping the flame alive. I'd like to ask my brother Shmuley could talk about this exciting project.
Okay. Yes, it was one of my father's last projects, and he worked on creating a guidebook for the perplexed about how to put up mezuzahs. He noticed since the very beginning of his career as a rabbi, even as an assistant rabbi in Charleston, he noticed that people didn't know what to do about all sorts of interesting doorways or even regular situations that often even the wife of the home had to deal with. And he knew it was a need to create a book that would teach people what to do. And he researched in the past few years of his life, and he had pictures drawn by an architect, Gil Gareth Jenkelo, a very beautiful work, which has not been published yet. And the idea was to create a website also, which people could access very easily and receive free answers to any question they have regarding mezuzah placement. It was very important for him to help people to know how to fulfill the Torah, that it should be easy for them. And as his health failed, he was unable to actually complete the website, although he completed the book. And he asked us to continue after him. So recently we finished renovating the design of the website to make it beautiful and accessible. And we're going to be releasing it soon in the next few days, or in a week or two, as long as it takes the programmer to plug everything in. But in the meantime, I'd like to show you the promotional video that's going to go around and also give you a sneak peek of the website.
You need to include some.
Sharing environment. Brain is techies.
Share screen. Share computer sound. That's not what they want to see.
Give me 1 second, we're setting this up. It'll take a few seconds.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot you might not know about correct mezuzah placement. The mezuzah is a holy connection with God, a symbol of our allegiance, a reminder against sin, and a household protection. The mezuzah is a fundamental mitzvah which is too important to get wrong. Remember, a wrongly placed mezuzah is like a wrongly wired circuit. It just does not work. Modern architecture raises many questions in almost every Jewish home. Come visit us at mezuzahmaven.org and find quick, clear, and detailed answers free of charge. Which rooms and which doorways deserve mezuzahs? Just ask the Maven. Rentals, storerooms, walk-in closets and small rooms, tall, short, and wide doorways, archways, 2 doors in 1 doorway, a doorway without a top or a side frame, and the most commonly confused issue regarding interior doorways: what's an entrance and what's an exit, and which is the right side. The list goes on. You are also welcome to ask your own mezuzah questions. This essential public service was initiated by Rabbi Kraines before his passing. Now it has been launched and dedicated in his memory. Come visit us at mezuzahmaven.org.
Okay.
Which one do you want? Huh? So what's it? Yeah, that's it.
Okay, here we have the website. I want to thank everyone actually was involved with putting this together, and they all know who they were, and we're very grateful to everyone who took part of this. A few people who were involved with this, especially recently. So here's the website. What's going to be up soon. You could search everything through our father's database for many things he dealt with. Here we play the video on the site. We start with the basics so that even anyone who's totally clueless about mezuzahs could gain something from here. to know where to begin even, and what's a question and what's not a question. And even just how basically to put up a mezuzah, very basic, simple instructions. And then we move on to more complicated issues that we have. My boss is not Jewish. Does my office need a mezuzah? This is a carousel that goes around with more to attract people's attention. But here you could access everything: questionable rooms, doorways, mezuzah covers, placement, removal, and inspection. And if this was not enough, going through these categories to find what you want, so then you could ask the Maven any question. Now this, we linked up with Star K, which is a very recognized kashrus in America. One of their leading rabbis, Rabbi Mordechai Frankel, will provide answers within let's say he said within 48 hours, answers will be provided, but could usually, from my experience with him, he's much quicker than that. And that's at the bottom of the screen over here. You could ask any question you want. You could upload a file. You could make a video of your house and send it to him. This is all quick and free and reliable. And that's any question you don't find over here. This here is about our father. And so, by the way, he lived until the age of 65, which interestingly is the gematria, the numerical equivalent of mezuzah. 65 is mezuzah. It's indeed one of maybe his final accomplishment, because after his life, he actually accomplished it. We also have a section here for mezuzah storage, which is always very interesting. People have fascinating stories about how they see Hashem's protection through mezuzahs, and when something's wrong with the mezuzahs, different things happen. So one thing people like, if someone lo aleinu has problems regarding their home or security, so one thing they might do is check their mezuzahs, which might be something to do with that. So people could read and share mezuzah stories over here. Now, just an example of a basic question. What does the mezuzah do for me? The mezuzah is a fundamental mitzvah. It is a symbol of our loving relationship with Hashem, a reminder not to stray from Him, a protection for the home, and a merit for long life. And here's quoting from my father's sefer, as you could read at your own leisure. If you go, an example of a question, let me show you. Let's see a question over here. Questions regarding mezuzah covers. So if you click on the category mezuzah covers, you'll get to this page, and you can see all the different questions on mezuzah covers. There are like about 80 or 90 questions already in the site, and more could be added. You could ask your own question. If we think that's something that other people gain from, we'll gladly share with everyone. So this is a very beautiful, very important and useful gift our Father gave to the world, which we are fulfilling His wishes to give to everyone. And this is something which He wanted, and this Hashem wanted that for some reason that He shouldn't accomplish in His life, but that we should finish up for Him the practical details of getting it around. And you're all welcome to take a stroll in the site, and afterwards take a stroll in your home and get everything. Get the mezuzah, get Hashem's mezuzah, not just on your tefillin, on your arm and on your head, but also in your home, and bring Hashem's kedusha into your home. And it has actually what to do with Hanukkah. Hanukkah, we put the menorah on the opposite side of the mezuzah. And when in our father's lifetime, he used to visit people's homes to tell them where the right places to put the mezuzah. And now you could visit his website, and he could accomplish the same thing if you come and visit his website, mezuzahmaven.org. Please record this in your favorites. It will be up hopefully in a week or two. Mezuzahmaven.org. Mezuzah, we'll send it out. Someone could put a chat on there, please. And you'll hear about it, and please spread the word. And this is a very beautiful and very useful contribution to the Jews of the world. A very real way of eternalizing our father's memory and helping him influence the Jewish community even further. May his memory be a blessing.
Just a quick thing, that the day before my father was passed on, I was visiting him. It was my last visit there. And he called me. I was on the phone to Shmuley. He told me to call Shmuley. He had a few messages. He wanted Shmuley to do this, to do that. So I was very much on his mind to the very end. Like this is a project that was very. This is family. It was a lot of hard work, and Baruch Hashem, I'm very happy that Shmuley persevered with his team and those who want to remain anonymous. But yeah, that's that's why I just wanted to share that. That was like something which struck me, that it was very much like, Shmuley, please, Shmuley, take, this is your project. Please make sure Shmuley, you want to make sure he would follow through. And Baruch Hashem, we're about to be released.
Thank you very much. It's really beautiful.
Mayor Roger.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna close with two things. So first of all, I'd like to introduce, we're gonna have three more of my brothers to speak. We're gonna start off with Yehuda for another exciting announcement, but I would just like to just introduce my brothers, Moshe, Hillel, and Shimshon. He'll be speaking on behalf of the family. But I'll just say just one reflection I had about us was something that really hit me. I remember it just only like when I was going on my way to driving back from the airport to go to my parents' home for the Levaya, it just hit me that I just realized the Shalom Bayis, the harmony in the home of my parents was actually remarkable. I have never seen anything like it. In a sense that, all of our brothers, we're talking about decades of people in the house, no one has ever remembered seeing them arguing in front of us at any form. They were one team. Each would praise the other one, and it was just a remarkable thing. The Rambam ends a lot of Hanukkah with saying that although Hanukkah is so amazing and tremendous, there's something that trumps Hanukkah, which is, let's say, Shabbos candles, things that promote peace in the home is even more important than Hanukkah. So with that, we've been privileged and fortunate to have a glimpse at what such a beautiful, harmonious family life could be. Like to call my brothers who were privileged to grow up and exposed to that, to share their memories starting with Yehuda and then Moshe, Hillel, and Shimshon. Thank you.
As Meir said, just here to launch another exciting initiative. Here we go. The Mezuzah Maven, like we have a lot of debt of gratitude to Shmuley for taking this on. There's another exciting initiative being also run by my older brother, of course, Simcha, and that is the Rabbi Kraines biography. I think that personally, as we now finished with the year, it's like very hard for us not to be able to say Kaddish and not to be able not to say Kaddish, as it's like was our connection to our father. And hopefully, like at least we try to hang on to that into some way. And I feel like there's something deeper about this biography, and that is the fact that there's so much to learn from our father. My father was always a man of teaching, trying to educate others, inspire others. And Wapi would be a great inspiration. We were to see a book that we could all learn through, we can all read through, be entertained from, of course, about my father and learn from his lessons. So this biography is now underway. We've already had people working on it, writing it, collecting stories. We're going to be giving out a little bit of a preview of it. It's not obviously to the same effect, but it's some sort of a preview. And that is Bezrat Hashem. In the next couple of days, we will be launching, we'll be sending out a booklet on my father. But Bezrat Hashem, in the next couple of years, we're going to see a nice professionally made biography. But on that, together with that, we're asking on you guys, all those people who also have all stories about my father, to please send them in. Sure, Damaris, Anna. They've got a lot of stories. We all have stories about my father that we can, whether they're humorous or whether they just to inspire others, whatever it is, we all have what to learn from our father. So if you can please send them through to us. Moshe.
Thank you.
Moshe.
Moshe?
Okay. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to thank you all for being here and giving us all the opportunity to share and reflect about my father, our Abba. So I just wanted to start off with that. I wanted to share a couple memories, some personal memories, and just if I can borrow from the theme that we had that was used for the poster for this for the poster for this event. I'm trying to see if I can put it up just so you can see what I'm looking at. And let me flip my camera here. Right, so here was the poster that we had, and you can see my father and you see a menorah sort of with some kind of lighthouse. And what that actually was borrowed from was from a poem that my father wrote in 1977, I guess the year after my parents got married, about Hanukkah. And I'll...
Did you know that he wrote poetry, did he?
I wrote, so over here right at the end, you can say, may you cross the ocean, brother, let my menorah be your lighthouse. So I just, in the interest of time, I'm going to just cut to that part when my father is saying, let my menorah be your lighthouse. So if I can borrow from that imagery, and I'd like to just share one story, because my father was my menorah for sure. He was absolutely my lighthouse. He was my guiding light. And his guidance to me was multifaceted. He came at any given discussion, any kind of topic, any kind of issue from so many different perspectives. He was someone who thought things through on so many different levels, and what worked for one is not going to work for the other. I think looking at my siblings and I think you can tell that he had to do that in order to get across Kanai Nahara, all 12 of us, everyone on their own level. He was able to relate to each and every one of us in such a special way because he gave over from himself on so many different ways. So if I can borrow from that imagery, and if we have here, let's say the menorah, so each one has its own little facet, but then at the bottom, it comes from a base. And what is that base? What was that base that my father used that supported his menorah, that allowed him to be able to shed such light and to be the lighthouse for so many of us? So I'd like to share a personal story, I guess a private moment, but I just think it needs to be told. When I was 8 years old, maybe even younger, I don't know how old I was, a young pikanin, and one of my brothers, you won't guess who. Oh, actually, you would guess who, because this one still fits. Rabbi Kraines walks sort of past the room, and he peeps his head in, and he says, "Sweet dreams." And now one of my brothers, and this one you won't be able to guess who it is now, but at the time, one of my brothers quickly shot right back at him, "Ugly nightmares." So I bugged out. I'm a little kid. I don't like to hear these things. I got the boogeyman in my head. I didn't appreciate that, the little banter between the two of them. So I go downstairs, I'm crying. My father takes me, and without like even addressing the boogeyman and saying, "Oh, where is it hiding?" or any kind of tactic that I may have used, he said, "Come with me." He took me into the playroom, and he grabbed a book from the shelf, and he sat me down on his lap at the dining room table. He opened up Tehillim, and he said to me, when we have things like this that happen to us, you look into the words of David HaMelech, and they'll set you free. And he sat with me, and we read a couple of Tehillim together. And that, even I was a little kid, I don't know why I would have been able to relate to it on that stage, but that gave me that sense of like security and okay, serenity. We're good. So I think that is one of the bases, one of the legs of that Torah, of that menorah that he had, was definitely one of faith and one of connection. Another one for sure is Torah study, because when I remember always he didn't have a lot of time necessarily to learn during his regular day. Obviously his job was Torah and mitzvahs, but when he finally wasn't a principal and he had school holidays, he went upstairs to the shul, or he went into Or Sameach or the kollel to just sit and learn. And that for me was inspirational, because like that was the wellspring that he pulled off of. And when I was a teenager and Rabbi Shnob had this competition, he did Torah, Avodah, and Gemilas Chasadim, and I won the competition to go to Israel. And my father said, you know what, I'm going to go with you. And just to put things in perspective, I was 15. At that stage, there was probably 8, 9, I don't know how many kids at home. 9 kids at home, including me, 8, 9 kids at home. And my parents were on just the same level. They're very connected to each other. My father came with me, and we bunked. We stayed in the dormitory of Or Sameach, and he was in the Beis Medrash, and then he'd go with me places. And I have one more prop to show you, because I just found this last night. This really leads to the final leg that I wanted to share, which was the leg of the base that filled his menorah, the leg of love of people, his absolute love and devotion to anyone, and especially his community that he interacted with, that he felt were like his siblings and his children. And for that, I'm going to share a cool photo with you, because there he is, and there's Zachariah and Yeshaya, and there's me in my lekker t-shirt in Israel, and hey Ryan, you can see right there, and Ryan Hollander, and Mayor Perez. Because he didn't just take me out when we were there. All the South African boys, listen, guys, let's all get together. And we went out for pizza. Oh, one more thing in there, and I'll speak over this. If you can see in the bottom right corner, it's not just us, but over here there's a freezer filled with ice cream. And when we got off the plane and we went to Or Sameach, we unloaded our stuff, and he said, hey, let me take you someplace cool. We found some random dinky makonet somewhere, and we bought Chalav Yisrael ice cream, because in South Africa we didn't have it. It wasn't so easy for him to get, and that was just another part of his personality. It was just just a very deeply human, deeply amazing person, and that was really what funneled him and strengthen him to be able to be such a lighthouse for me. And I guess I'll end up with just a bracha to us, because I know that I definitely miss my Abba. He was my guiding light. He was everything for me. And I before we wanted Mashiach, but now it's personal. I need my Abba back. I need him to guide me. And my blessing to all of us is that we can bring Mashiach, and he can be there, holding that, being that lighthouse, being that shamash for our menorah, shining their beautiful light into our lives, the light of Torah, the light of love of humanity, the light of belief in Hashem, and cohesiveness in one beautiful community. And Or Sameach, a happy night.
I'd like to ask Hillel to speak.
Okay, thank you everyone. First of all, thank you everyone for coming. I think it's a special covered whatever that everyone's here to I guess learn from him, and it should be a real Ilon Neshama. Also, thank you, Moshe Shar. You had already shouted out for Damaris and Anna, but I wanted to thank them for. I would never be here the same person I am today without them, and especially without the tuna balls and the cabbage salad, and all the hard work they do for the shul. And also thank you to the community for, as Zachariah mentioned, we as a family grew tremendously from being part of the shul. I personally did too. A lot of things that I do now is only because of growing up in Osamak Santon and Garamana. So thank you all for that. I wanted to talk about the mitzvah of emes that my father had, truth and honesty. The word emes, which means truth, is made out of the letters Aleph, Mem, and Taf. I think I heard this from Rabbi Kraines back in the day when we had to learn before computer time. So I remember this. The letter Aleph has got the two legs at the bottom. The Mem is also has a line at the bottom which is balanced, and the Taf also has legs. Whereas the opposite of emes, which is sheker, has a shin which has a pointy on the bottom, a kuf which also has one leg, and a resh which is one leg. So the word emes is balanced, whereas if someone who has truth is balanced, whereas someone who has sheker, it's crooked and it's not balanced. A person which lies, and everything is wishy-washy, every time they say another lie leads to another, and it's hard to get out of the trap. Their life is going to be like that. Also, it's hard to keep it balanced and straight. Whereas emes, which is the opposite, is very balanced and very stable, has a lot of stability. So a person which lives off emes, over the Torah, their life they'll have a lot more stability in their life, and it's everlasting. So I think this is definitely one of the mitzvahs which Abba's excelled in, and I feel like he definitely showed like all his other mitzvahs without just teaching us about it. He led by example, and that's how we Abba Anima, should I say, and that's how we gleaned off that, and we all, I think, took that. So just a few stories which I wanted to share. One was when my parents lived in Mexico. They had, I think the kotel over there made a deal with one of the restaurants, and they said that if anyone who's part of the kotel can get a certain discount from the restaurant. So my father, I don't think he was part of the kotel. He was a principal and a rabbi of the school, but he wasn't part of the kotel. So when my siblings wanted to get things for a discount, he would say like, well, since he wasn't part of the kotel, some people might have thought, oh, it's only anyone who works in Klei Kodesh, who does Hashem's holy work of teaching and spreading Torah, that's who they were doing the deal with. And my father said, no, they said the deals just with the kotel, so he wouldn't take that discount. And I was in a similar vein, when one of my brothers was buying a hat, he said to my father, oh, there's a certain way that I can do it and get a better price. I can do a little shtick and like do something which is a little sketchy, and then I'll get it for cheaper. I don't think it was something which was necessarily illegal. I think it was more just like putting a shtick. And my father was like, I'm sorry, we don't do that. That's not the right thing to do. If Hashem wants you to, he felt that if, even though it would have been helpful financially for him, he felt that if this was the right thing to do, you do what's right. You don't try to find easy ways to cut corners, rather to pay the full amount, and Hashem will help you with the finance. And he felt in terms of Torah values, he was Eved Hashem who did everything with the right. He always tried to do everything the right way according to what the Torah says. And when he would do things in the shul, like when you think of new activities, he would always try to make sure they weren't watered down. He wanted them to be the true emes, way of that Hashem would want, or ways of the Torah. Or if there was at like rabbinical meetings, he would make sure that if he felt there was something which was not 100% in line, he wouldn't be shy to stand up and say, I'm sorry, this is not like we should do it this way or that way, because he felt if something wasn't emes inside him, that would upset him, and he would have to make a point to do it, and say he would do it in a peaceful way, but he would always make sure to do it. So I feel like something we could learn on that. Also, another thing is in his Sefer Shtal Zev, which he put out 2 weeks before he passed away. He in a lot of the end of a lot of the essays, I noticed a lot of times he's saying like this isn't a complete work, I'm just trying, or if you have any feedback, please let me know, because he felt that for MS Torah, you need to have a back and forth to get to the final answer. He knew that he would try his best, and he did his best to write things out, but you can't take every, he was saying, like, you have to give me feedback and tell me if you think otherwise, and then he would have discussions with people to get to the MS at the end. So I feel like this is something which I've definitely gained from, and I feel like he excelled in it. So just want to bring that out. Thank you, everybody.
So thank you, Hillel. We'll ask Shimshon will be the last speaker.
Thank you, Mecca.
Put on your sound. Are you unmuted?
1 second. Yeah. I would have liked to say a hesped, but Hashem decreed that my father would pass away on Hanukkah, and in doing so, he decreed that today would be an evening of celebration rather than an evening of mourning. And perhaps that's a lesson, that sometimes we get so caught up in what we lost that we forgot what we had. Last week we had the unveiling, and we dedicated a stone with each word thought through and deliberated, meetings upon meetings, back and forth debating which fickle words could come closest to preserving my father's legacy. At the end, we dedicated a stone which we're all proud of, and my brother Simcha gave a speech, and he talked about how all the exceptional attributes stem from one root, the root of having a lev tov, a good heart. And on the way back, I was sitting next to my brother-in-law Yitzhak, and he shared with me something I think we could all learn from. When we say that a person has a good heart, what does that mean? Why do we use the heart? Because everyone knows that our emotions come from our brain. It's not from our heart. Our heart's just there to pump blood. So why do we use the heart? And Yitzhak said that when a person is excited with adrenaline pumping, his heart beats quicker. And that's what a lev tov is. A lev tov is someone who gets excited about good things. And that's something you can't fake. You can't paste a smile. Pasting a smile won't up your heartbeat. So here's how I want to define a lev tov, and this is how I want to define the root to all of my father's achievements. That having a lev tov is someone who genuinely wants to do good. And that actually fits with the colloquial usage of the word, that normally when we say that someone has a lev tov, has a good heart, we say he's nice, he's a nice guy. And it fits, because if someone just does a nice thing because he just expects to do so, or he wants to in that instance, it's very much dependent on his mood. If he's in a giving mood, he'll be a nice person. If he's in a bad mood, he will be not such a nice person. But having a lev tov, when we say someone's a good-hearted individual, such as my mother over here, and Lahavdil Alpha Abdul is my father. Is that the my father? That when they have a lev tov, it means that they genuinely want to do good regardless of their mood. And how about that? Because we're put into this world to do good. Imagine going back upstairs. Yeah, it's a laugh at. Imagine going back upstairs and being able to say with confidence that I wanted to do good with every fiber of my being, that every action, every life decision, that imagine piling on the scales, all the sacrifices, every character trait in all its glory, and saying that I wanted to do the good genuinely. And a bit closer to home, imagine having on a stone a list of those exemplary attributes that come from having a good heart. My father, Olav Shalom, had a good heart through and through, and it was a heart nurtured from his good-hearted mother, and refined in the study halls of Jerusalem. There's a particular line on the stone that says, Baruch Atochei is Shalom, which literally means his outside was like his inside, and that he was a man of peace. And then there's two ways to read this. Firstly, as two different attributes, that he was a genuine person and that he was also a peaceful person. But I would like to propose an additional understanding to say that he was a genuine person, and because of that, he was a man at peace with the world and at peace with himself. And this is the message that I want to take away, that it's not enough to do good things. One must work on himself to develop into a person that truly wants to do good and to receive the ultimate reward that this world could give. That at the end of my days, I want to emulate my father in being able I want to be able to say to myself that the person I genuinely am is the person that I am at peace with. Thank you. Mayor.
Thank you. And thank you all. I think I mentioned this before, but a lot more people have joined, but thank you every single one of you for joining. Your participation makes so much to us. I'd like to, the last thing, we're gonna show a video from 2013, a Shari Torah play. And a thank you to Shari Torah, to David Hurwitz for finding this, tracking it down, and sharing it with us. I would just like to say, we just read the Haftorah of last Shabbos, Shabbos Hanukkah, where the Nevuah said to Yoshua, the Kohen HaGadol, the one who was to minister the house of Hashem, and he said, if you walk in my ways, if you be a role model for my own ways, says Hashem, and you're loyal to your position in whatever you do in teaching, in keeping the standards of the Torah, and then which the commentators explain that the angels are called, I'll give you walking among those who stand. The angels are static, but people move. Everything we do, every day that we have, every second, we can grow further. And the truth is that even after a person's petira, the day of a Yartzeit is when a person is able to have an ilui neshama going up. And therefore, thank you to all of you for your participation and for continuing my father's legacy through what he did. He will have mahalchim mirt Hashem dein hamdim ha'ela to always be able to grow and grow again. So I'd like to show, we now have a clip of my father speaking and then a song ending off with my father. It's a happy and freilichen Hanukkah, and thank you all for joining.
Mayor, are you busy playing it?
Is Steven Siegel? I mean, or Yehuda, who had this? Who is going to be putting this on?
Mayor, I don't have it.
What?
I don't have it. So I don't know if Yehuda has it.
Zach, come on.
Yehuda's is big enough.
Should I?
This was supposed to be a Kraines event, so we had to.
We had to do it. Sorry. I'm sorry. I think I do have it. So let me actually go and work on sharing that. I apologize for the delay. Okay, hold please bear with me.
Or as Abba would say, and I present the Flying Zucchini Brothers.
this one?
It was a Dropbox.
It's a Dropbox. This one?
Maybe.
Open folder. Let's see if it might have been moved or deleted. Let's see. Open Control J.
Why don't you just go to your email?
It's here. It's shown.
Lift up your candle. How bright its light will shine. The fire deep inside you has power so divine. The neshama is your guide. Lift up your candle. How bright its light will shine. The fire deep inside you has power so divine. The neshama is your guide for the Torah way that's true. One life can make a difference. It's up to you. Lift up your candle. Turn darkness into day. Just one single mitzvah. A judgment can be swayed. And though we know it's hard, we all fall now and then. Lift up your candle once again. And now, it is up to every one of us to make a difference for Klal Yisrael and the world. With renewed inspiration, lift up your candle. It's up to you. Can't be swayed. Lift up your candle, bright its light will shine. The fire deep inside you has power so divine. The neshama is your guide for the Torah way that's true. One life that make it different, it's up to you. Lift up your candle, turn darkness into day. Just one single mitzvah, a judgment can be swayed. And though we know it's hard, we all fall now and then. Lift up your candle once again. Lift up your candle once again. Once again. Once again. Once again.
You didn't share it, did you?
Thank you, everyone. Lift up your candle once again.